Welcome to today's class, Project Management. I think this is the first class we're having since the inception of this online program. But we'll see what we can do to catch up with everything we're expected to do. So this afternoon, we're going to be looking at producing a workable schedule. Producing a workable schedule. I want to believe that everyone that is participating in this class have done Project Management 1. They've been defined what project is, project management, the project management processes, the project management framework, the qualities of a project manager, and stuff like that. So I want to believe that all those things have been done in project management 1. So here we're going to be basing the emphasis will be on how to actually use the MS Project tool, the Microsoft Office tool, to run our project activities. So today we're looking at producing a workable schedule. This is actually the project time management, one of the 9 knowledge areas of the project. Okay, so we're looking at how to produce a workable schedule. And please, if you're with me, pick up your pen and your paper. You can screen grab the screen so that you pay more attention than the right thing. You can also do that. So producing a workable schedule, first of all, scheduling is a process of arranging, controlling, and optimizing workloads in the production process and manufacturing process. That's the simple definition of scheduling. Okay, the process of arranging, controlling, and optimizing workloads in a production process or manufacturing process. So 3 things actually involved in. First of all, you arrange what you want to do, you control, and then you optimize these things you want to do during a production process or manufacturing process. Okay, it also has to do with allocating resources. Okay, for such production or manufacturing process. So basically, when we're talking about scheduling, as far as project process is concerned, what do we need to do? What are the resources required to do them? How are we going to do them? And then we now go ahead to assign these resources to each of the activities that you want to carry out. And that also includes time. What you have simply done is schedule. So when somebody comes to work in the morning, for example, he or she knows what to do at a particular point in time. So he looks at the calendar or the schedule and knows the activities expected to carry out. Okay. Now each of those activities that needs to be carried out will be listed, which is the first one I talked about. You list the activities, you list the resource persons that will carry out those activities. You provide them with the machineries, equipment, and then tools that they're going to use to carry it out. And then you allocate time for each of these activities to be completed. What you have done is simply scheduling. So that's what we're looking at. So in project management, remember, we talked about triple constraint in a project. So there are basically 3 things that always pose a challenge to every project manager. We talked about quality, we talked about cost, we talked about time. So now we're looking at one of the triple constraints and how you can actually use it effectively to meet up with the project schedule. All right. So that's that for the definition of the project scheduling. So what are the purposes, or what's the purpose of scheduling? Number 1 is to minimize production time and cost by telling the production facility when and which staff and which equipment. So once you schedule, it has helped us to minimize every resources that we have within the organization, be it the production time, be it the cost, the budget for that production, okay, and every other equipment and everything. So once we have activity schedule within an organization, we're able to effectively minimize production time and cost and everything. Number 2 purpose of scheduling is to maximize the efficiency of the operation. So before the end of the day, we actually have an idea of what we're expected to achieve. So because everybody is on that time, you've already scheduled the activities, you've already allocated time for each of them. So at the end of the day, you'll be able to say, oh wow, you've been able to achieve this. So scheduling helps to create targets and also helps to achieve such targets. So project scheduling aims to maximize the efficiency of the operation and of course reduce the costs. Then number three is that it reduces scheduling efforts. Because like I said, before you actually start the work process, you already know, somebody have already drawn out the time, what is going to take you to start and finish that particular project. So you already know. So what that has done for you is that it has helped you to reduce the time you're going to maybe as you're working, you're checking the time to be able to calculate how many hours, how many seconds, how many minutes are not going to spend doing each activity. That has already been done for you. So all you need to do is just focus on the activity that you've been given and see how you can deliver that activity within that set time. Okay. Labor load leveling is also another thing. So one person is not overloaded or overburdened with a particular activity. So in scheduling, everybody, there's division of labor. Everybody knows what he or she is expected to carry out. So that's also another purpose. Then accurate delivery date code. So accurate delivery date. So it means if your activity is going to take 3 hours, those expecting the result already know that within 3 hours you deliver it. Why? Because your project, your activity has already been scheduled. So it gives us accurate delivery date codes. So if, for example, now the supervisor comes to site after 3 hours, you should be expecting that that job should have been completed because in the scheduling of that activity, we've already stated that it's going to take 3 hours. Okay? And then, of course, real-time information tells us where we are at a particular point in time. So those are some of the purposes of scheduling. All right, let's proceed if you're with me. Types of scheduling. There are basically two types of scheduling that we're going to be looking at as far as project process is concerned. We have the forward scheduling and we have the backward scheduling. I hope I'm not too fast. Types of scheduling, we have the forward scheduling and we have the backward scheduling. Now, the forward scheduling tells us when we're expected to start an activity and the availability of a resource of resources. Okay, so planning a task from the date resources becomes available to determine the starting date and also to the finish date. So that's forward scheduling. So whenever the resources are made available, the task can begin. So it doesn't matter whether the task is expected to start. Let's say, for example, today is 4th, and let's say, for example, now the task is supposed to start on the 6th of May. Unfortunately, all the resources that you need for that project to start was already made available by 4th. There's nothing stopping you from starting that project by that 4th of May, even if the set date says you should start it on the 6th. But because all the resources and everything that you need is available 2 days to the time, you can actually begin. So what you're going to call forward scheduling. Okay, applying the task from the date resources became available. So instead of that 6 to 4, because resources are available, so we just plan and start the activities. That kind of scheduling is referred to as forward scheduling. So until the resources are made available, you cannot schedule those tasks. To complete that task, we need those resources. So we cannot schedule the task until the resources are available. But once the resources are available, you cannot start planning for the task again like that. That kind of scheduling that is determined by the availability of resources is what referred to as the forward scheduling. The backward scheduling is planning the task from the due date. That is, if it's going to start on the 6th, you are actually starting your activity on the 6th, whether the resources are available or not available. Okay, so you are required by date to start a particular task. So you have to wait until that date arrives. So that kind of backward scheduling, that kind of schedule is referred to as backward scheduling. Now, backward scheduling also covers, for example, if there are any changes made, okay, either in the task or the time that is required to complete those tasks. Some changes can come either from the sponsor or from the government agencies or there's one problem with the other, those kind of changes can also delay a particular project task from starting at a particular point in time. So you have to wait until those changes have been completed. Let's say, for example, now the program task was supposed to start on the 6th. Because of certain changes, it now starts maybe 2 days after, let's say on the 8th, and the rest of it. Despite the fact that resources and everything that you need is available. That kind of scheduling is referred to as backward scheduling. Okay, so forward scheduling starting before the due time because all the resources are available. While backward scheduling is starting after the due time because of some changes that occurred in both the task and the resources. Okay. Now the key concepts in scheduling, things I want you to note when it comes to scheduling, things I need to note when you are scheduling an activity. Number one is input. What are inputs? Inputs are those resources, okay, that you need to put together for transformational process to take place. It can also be referred to as those resources that we use, okay, in a transformational or in a production process. Those resources are referred to as the input. What a particular process needs before it can be successful. That is the definition of input. Okay. What is put in, what is taken in, or what is operated on. Those are inputs. Examples of inputs include your raw material. So, for example, in a production process, for that transformational process to take place, you need inputs. So the inputs include your raw materials, the labor, which is the human resources, the equipment, the energy, which is light or generator, the clean environment, all those things that you first of all put together before you start that production process. Referred to as input. So now in scheduling, you need to pay attention to these inputs. Now tell us by the time we're going we proceed in this class, I will show us why those inputs are very necessary in scheduling the project. The second one is the output. Output is the result of the transformation. Output is the result of a transformational process. So by the time you're done, after you put the inputs together and then the transformational process takes place, the resultant effect, okay, the consequence of that particular process is the output, which is usually the products produced or the services that have been rendered. Okay, that's your output. And those two are referred to as deliverable in project management. So when they define project, said that project is a unique endeavor that produces a set of deliverables, within specified time, cost, and quality. So that output, that unique endeavor that produces that output, okay, those are deliverables. Then resource allocation. Resource allocation has to do with assigning inputs to produce output. Okay, how much of this raw material do we need? How many of resources, staffs do we need, employees or personnel do we need? What kind of equipment? So by the time you start allocating all these resources, be it material resources, financial resources, equipment resources, labor resources, that's human resources. By the time you start assigning these resources to different activities, what you are going to do for resource allocation. And then of course, the last one is dependencies. Now also going to look at dependencies in detail. Dependencies actually shows the relationship that exists between two tasks. Okay, that's dependency. The relationship that exists between two tasks. There are some tasks where you put two tasks together. There are some tasks that before task B must start, task A must finish. That means task B depends on task A to finish before it can proceed. Okay, such relationship that exists between two tasks, referred to as dependencies, is also very, very important when you're doing your project scheduling. All right. So I've talked about 4 major things that I need us to understand when you are scheduling. The inputs, which is what you put in as transformational process. The output, which is actually the deliverable. resource allocation, that is assigning different resources, financial, material, labor, resources, equipment resources to different activities. And of course, dependencies talks about relationship that exists between tasks. Okay, so let's dive into project scheduling fully so that we'll see how it's done and how you can also use MS Project to achieve project scheduling. So we define project schedule as the tool that communicates what work needs to be performed, okay, the resources that is needed to perform the work, and of course the time frame that particular task needs to be performed. That is project scheduling. Three things make up that definition. It communicates one, so it's a tool that communicates one, what work needs to be performed. So what do we need to do? Number one. Number two, what resources do we need, okay, to perform that work? And number three, what is the time frame that is needed for that work to be performed? That is project scheduling. And we call, now look at that definition of three things. What work needs to be done? That is identification. Okay. What resources is needed? That is resource allocation. And what's the time frame? Okay. That's a project scheduling itself. So these are the three things that make up that definition. Okay. So the project schedule should reflect all of the work associated with delivering the project on time. Okay. So when you're scheduling your project, it must reflect all the work associated with delivering that particular project or that particular task on time. Okay, now without a full and complete schedule, the project manager will be unable to complete a project in terms of cost resources necessary to deliver the project. Okay, so when you're doing your project scheduling, you must take cognizance of all the work that is needed to be performed in order to deliver that project on time. Okay, and the project manager must pay attention to this schedule to make sure that each personnel delivers that project at the set time for that particular activity at the set time. Otherwise, at the end of the day, it's going to cost a lot of money. It's going to cost extra resources to deliver such projects. So, in summary, I said project scheduling tells us what work needs to be done, what resources are needed to perform that work, and the time frame in performing that work. That is project scheduling. Okay, and we say project scheduling must cut across every task, every work that is associated with that particular project, and being able to deliver it on time. Okay, and then we said project manager must pay attention. Once this schedule has been drawn up, project manager must pay attention to it to ensure that everybody effectively utilizes the time so that at the long term it won't cost us a lot. Okay, so that's that. Now in project scheduling, there's something I want us to also pay attention to, which is very, very, very important. It is called the work breakdown structure. I'm sure all of us have come across this word, the work breakdown structure. In PMP 1, I know they talked about work breakdown structure. Now, I have to bring it back here because it plays a very big role as far as project scheduling is concerned. Okay, now what is work breakdown structure? We said the process of breaking down work activities to a simpler, more manageable pieces. Okay, so that the delivering of that particular deliverable will be successful. Okay, when you split a task into a simpler, more manageable piece of work to ensure that the delivery of that particular task is well achieved. That is work breakdown structure. So, if you remember what I said earlier on, I told you something. First of all, we have a task to perform. You must break down that task into smaller components. Okay, let me give an example. Let me pick a project so that you get to understand what I'm going to say. First of all, okay, let's say we want to build a 3-bedroom flat. That is our project. I want to do project scheduling, okay, for that particular project. First of all, every project, I always say this, anything you see as a product or a service, a successful product or service, is not performed by magic. That particular thing was performed because the project manager paid attention to a system that works in project management. Now, when you look at that 3-bedroom flat, how were they able to achieve it? First of all, it's what we call the initial phase, intermediate phase, and the final phase. Okay. Now, when we look at the initial phase, let's say, for example, now we are taking the foundation as our initial phase, and then the raising of the block and rest of them as intermediate phase, and of course, the finishing as the final phase. Under that, what they call now the foundation. Foundation is a task already on its own. The foundation makes up the initial phase. For you to be able to achieve that foundation, which is a task, you need to break it down further into a smaller sub-task or sub-units. That's where work breakdown structure comes in. So when I break that particular task of laying foundation into smaller tasks, so that I'll be able to manage it or be able to deliver it, what I've done is what we call work breakdown structure. So it starts from what? Clearing the site. Number 2, it starts from leveling the site. Number 3, excavation. Pegging. Okay, you peg and you mark, pegging and marking, and then you start excavating, and then you start laying cement, and then you start putting blocks, and then you cover it. Those are the activities that make up the foundation. Now, what I've done is what I've been able to break down that task, which is foundation, into smaller tasks. What I'm going to refer to as work breakdown structure. So it's a building block of a schedule to start. Okay, it enables you to understand how to achieve a particular task because we've broken it down. Okay, so that's how it is. For you to be a graduate, you must complete 4 years. For you to complete 4 years, we have to break down that 4 years into semesters. First semester, second semester, year 1. First semester, second semester, year 2. First semester, second semester, year 3. Just like that. Now, that smaller pieces of semesters is referred to as a work breakdown structure. If you're able to achieve complete first semester, second semester, like that, from year 1 to final year, you're already a graduate. So for you to achieve any task, you must be able to break them down into smaller, manageable pieces. Otherwise, you get confused what to do or what not to do. So that's why work breakdown structure is very, very important. Now look at it. When you have work breakdown structure, it's very easy for you to assign time frame. It is very easy for you to assign resources, be it material resources, be it human resources, be it equipment resources, and the rest of them. So can I just say foundation, how many hours will it take us to build foundation? You say for 2 hours. You may be wrong. You may be wrong. You may not be able to achieve that foundation in 2 hours. Why? Because you have not considered the task individually that makes it up. So by the time you say, okay, clearing will take 1 hour. Okay, clearing, just like I said, 1 hour. Leveling and pegging and marking will take under 30 minutes. Excavation will take under 1 hour. Mixing of the cement and the stones and the rest of them will take under 30 minutes. So you see, by the time you put it together, you won't be having 2 hours anymore. You'll be having like 5 hours or sometimes 10 hours. Just like we said, one of the major purposes for scheduling is that it gives us accurate time for each task to be completed. So work breakdown structure helps us to assign time to those individual tasks, which collectively gives us the time frame to complete that task. That is the function or the importance of work breakdown structure. Okay, so let's proceed. Look at this now. If you all can see, this simply tells us, gives us an idea of what breakdown structure is. The project that we want to achieve here is to produce a new toy for children between the ages of 5 years to 9 years old. So let's say we work with a toy company. So we want to produce new toy for children between 5 to 9 years old. That is the deliverable. Where that new toy you're seeing on top is the major deliverable. So at the end of all the activities and everything we're going to do, we must produce that new toy. Now, what are the tasks that needs to be performed to complete that new toy? We need to do a market research. We need to do product design. We need to do product development. We need to do product planning. And of course, the last one. So these are some of the things that you need to perform. Okay? To be able to. So those are the tasks. Market research, product design, product development, product planning, like that. So those are the tasks. For us to be able to do market research, we need to break down that task into WBS, into smaller pieces, which is the work breakdown structure. So the first group, the survey, the research findings becomes the sub-task of the main task, which is the market research. So point 1.11 to 1.14 is the work breakdown structure or the sub-task for market research. The same thing for product design. So you have the design, research, evaluation, design document, concept model, design selection. All those things are the work breakdown structure for product design. And then bill of materials, initial prototype testing, production level sign-off are all work breakdown structure for product development. The same as that. So you see, you splitted it down into smaller pieces. Now, if you come to market research now, you can simply assign resources, be it financial resources, equipment resources, and human resources to each of these tasks, these sub-tasks. Now, remember that when you successfully achieve this sub-task, you have achieved the main task. And when you achieve the main task, you're good in achieving the deliverable, which is a new toy. So you see why work breakdown structure is very, very, very important and essential as far as a project scheduling is concerned. So you see, if I give you this now, you can be able to allocate time, allocate resources, allocate everything. And then you tell us how long it's going to take us to produce one new toy. Because we've already broken down all the tasks into sub-tasks. And each of the sub-tasks, we're going to allocate resources. How many persons, okay, will go and do the survey? How many days or many hours will they have to find out the survey? As they're doing that, people are involved in analysis, the research analysis. How many of them? How many days and the rest of them? This is referred to as work breakdown structure. Okay, let's proceed. So 6 steps. Let's look at the 6 steps to successful scheduling. 6 steps. We may not be able to complete this, but whatever we stop today, we'll continue from there next time. Number one is define the schedule activity. This is referred to as activity definition. In project time management, we call it activity definition. Define the schedule activity. Take your work breakdown structure, work packages, and then split them further into schedule activities. Let me take you back to that listing that we have. Look at point number 1. As we want to define our schedule activities, we said take your work breakdown structure, your work packages, and then further split them into. These are the work packages include the project itself is new toy for 5 to 9 years old. The work packages include the market research, the product design, the product development, production planning. These are what the work packages. Okay. Then scheduled activities, which is the work breakdown we talked about, that make up each of these now. Okay. The focus group, the survey, the research, and the rest of them. So we split them down like that, the way it is. Okay. Then take each work breakdown work package and decide what activities are required to create that package. So what work activities required to create a market research? We say survey, research analysis, market research finding, focus groups, and the work activities that is required to achieve this work package, which is the market research. Okay, so that's what you do for all the work packages that you have here. Define the activities that make up the work package. So number one step in scheduling is activity definition. What activities do we need to do to deliver a work package? Just like the example I gave you now for the project, the building project, we divided the building project into three work packages: the foundation, the laying of the block, and the plumbing and the piping and everything, and then the finishing. Okay. For the work package, which is foundation, what activities do we need to do to deliver the foundation? Talk about clearing, deep pegging, excavation, like that, laying of blocks and the rest of them. Those are the activities that is needed to deliver that work package. So what I have done is referred to as activity definition. So we're able to define the schedule activities. So you do that for the initial phase, you do that for the intermediate phase, you do that for the final phase. So if you have a project at hand, first of all, split that project into work packages. That's number one. So there are three steps there. First of all is define the project I want to do. Split that project into work packages. And remember, your work packages should fall under three phases: initial phase, intermediate phase, and the final phase. Now, for each of the work packages, list the activities that needs to be carried out to complete each of the work package. When you do this successfully, once you're able to do this, you'll be able to define your scheduled activity. And what we refer to as the activity definition. Let's proceed. So the work package focus group actually consists of three: identify focus group targets, prepare focus group objectives, and perform focus group. Just that's the example. Giving the example of emphasizing on that example that I gave us, that chart that I gave us. So basically, that's what work package is all about. Look at this now. Look at this activity list. Okay, from there you can see that the work packages have been listed, and activities that is required to complete them also been listed. So for the focus group, we have three major activities that make up the focus group, which is a work package. We have identify focus group targets, prepare focus group objectives, perform focus group. All these things makes up that work package and the activities that needs to be carried out for the work package focus group. Then you have the survey. The activities that need to be performed is perform the survey, research analysis, perform analysis, market research and finding, create market research and finding. So for each work package, tell us the activity that is needed to complete it. Now in your MS project tool, just like I told us, once you open it, the first thing that appears on that MS project tool is what referred to as the Gantt chart. This is how the Gantt chart is. Okay, there are two sides of the Gantt chart. First is where you put your activity list, then the other one is your calendar, where it tells us the time of the days, that's the duration of each activity, and also identifying the dependencies that exist among them. I will get there because I have some of those pictures to actually explain it. So what I'm trying to say is, when you're defining your activity, identify the work packages and of course the activities that is needed to complete it. Not only that, okay, that's the first step. So identify the work packages, identify the activities that is needed to complete each of the work packages. Step two, I think, okay, I think my time is up. All right. So when we come next week, we begin with the second one, which is sequence the activity. We call it activity sequencing. Activity sequencing. So please, when we come next week, we'll start with the activity sequencing. Now let me re-emphasize or summarize what we've been able to do today. First of all, we define what schedule is. Say scheduling, project scheduling has to do with identifying what work needs to be done, identifying the resources that we need to complete that work, and then putting time frame, okay, for that particular work. That is how we define project scheduling. We said the importance of project scheduling, okay, is the fact that it helps us to save, it saves time, it saves cost, it saves energy, it gives
Mr.
us
Badi,
accurate time and the rest of them.
Mr. Badi,
Okay. Yes, all right. So I think my
time
time is
up.
up. My time is up. So when we come next week, we'll start with activity sequencing. Thank you very much.